I've just watched all those Bamford Rose videos on primary cat failure. I'm kind of freaking out about my Aston Martin V12. How do I figure out if my cats are in good shape? In this episode of Aston1936.com, I'm going to try and find out if the primary catalytic converters in my V12 Aston Martin are starting to disintegrate. Yikes. Sorry for the interruption, it's Future Steve here. I've just finished editing this video and it's nearly 42 minutes long. You're certainly going to be sitting there wondering, is there something in this video worth your time?
Is there any sports in it?
Are you kidding? Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles.
Doesn't sound too bad.
If you're seriously interested about the issues surrounding primary catalyst failure and that could lead to the death of your V12 engine, then this video's got something for you. I'm going to go over the background of the problem. I'm going to show you exactly how you can get in and inspect your actual primary catalyst. And then I'm going to discuss the condition of my actual primary catalyst with Mike from Bamford Rose. So come on. So pour yourself a glass of your favorite whiskey, settle yourself in a comfy chair, and let's get on with the show. Yikes. So if you follow Mike at Bamford Rose video series, he's basically talked quite a bit about how a misfire can lead to a catalyst failure, and the catalyst failure can lead to absolute engine failure of the V12. So I was worried that my V12 engine might have had some sort of catalyst damage. When I bought my car 8 years ago, it actually had a misfire condition that took me a year to discover. And I've since fixed the misfire, but I've always wondered, I wonder if there was any catalyst damage. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do it yourself and actually visually inspect your primary catalysts to see if they're starting to break up or if they're in perfectly good condition. So in Mike's videos, he's never really shown us where on the car the catalysts are. Obviously, they're attached to the engine. But when you think about the engine, right, so there's the right-hand side of the car is cylinders 1 through 6. The left-hand side of the cars is cylinders 7 through 12. And so we're on the left-hand side here having a look. And so this is the 7 through 12 secondary bank of cylinders. And so there's 4 primary catalytic converters. So the first 3 on this side funnel down into one cat. The second 3 on this side funnel down into another cat. We can actually get in here for a look. So now that we're in here tight, you can see I'm actually touching, that's the cylinder head. And underneath this heat shield is the exhaust manifold. And right about here is where to the left would be cylinders 7, 8, 9, and to the right would be cylinders 10, 11, 12. And these 2 white wires go down to the O2 sensors that are mounted to the tops of the primary catalysts. So I'm just touching one of them here. That's the primary catalyst for cylinders 10, 11, 12, and off to its left we have cylinders 7, 8, 9, and that's the primary cat for them. So we're going to be working on those in a few minutes. So what's our primary concern? Mike's videos go on and describe that a misfire condition, so basically an incomplete combustion in one of the cylinders, not all of them, even just a single cylinder, lets unspent fuel pass through into the exhaust flow. So now in those catalytic converters is the catalyst matrix, and that is 800 degrees C. It's super hot. So you have this unspent fuel that comes down the exhaust pipe, drops into that chamber where the O2 sensor happens to be. That fuel gets in here, it's 800 degrees, bang! It's going to go off now. And that's not a particularly good thing on an Aston Martin. They made a design decision to use a ceramic-based catalyst. So the material inside the can right there is a ceramic material. So imagine you have this unspent fuel comes in, hits this 800 degree surface, explodes, and it's brittle ceramic. The ceramic itself can start to deteriorate. It can break up. Other cars might have a titanium catalyst or something else that would be metal, but probably for cost savings, Aston Martin put in a ceramic catalyst. So now you have this ceramic material starting to disintegrate on the top. Well, as we'll see in a minute, this mesh, this matrix, if there's a bigger chunk, it can't fall through. So imagine this catalyst chunk is sitting here just churning away, banging around in all the exhaust flow on top of the catalyst material. That itself isn't particularly great, and it would probably pulverize and eventually make its way out through the rest of the exhaust matrix. But there's a design feature in an Aston Martin V12 that can cause some real peril. Now, if you think about the combustion cycle, it's suck, squeeze, bang, blow. So on the intake stroke, suck, the intake valve here opens up and allows a fuel and air mixture to pull down into the cylinder. Then the valve closes, it's squeezed again in the compression cycle, the spark goes off, bang, the piston's driven down, and that's the power stroke. The exhaust valve over here now opens up, and then as the piston comes up, all the exhaust gases flow out. So that's great. But Aston Martin made another design decision, is that to deal with some emission control issues, they didn't want to build in an exhaust gas recirculation system. So on modern cars, essentially they take a little sip of the noxious gases that are in the exhaust stream and they funnel them back around to the intake side. So on a different type of car, there'd be an exhaust gas valve and a pump, and it would pull the exhaust gas around and meter it in on the front side, mixing it with the fresh air fuel. And it heats up the air fuel and it kind of reburns some of the NOx gas that's coming back around. So that's a way to deal with some of the emissions. Aston didn't want to fit all that plumbing to the V12. So what they did is, which is kind of tricky and smart, is that they changed the cam profile. So imagine we're at the end of that blow stroke, the exhaust valve is open, the exhaust gases are escaping, and instead of closing the exhaust valve right at the top, now remember the suck stroke comes next. So the intake valve's open, the piston starts to move down to suck in the fresh fuel. They changed the cam profile on the exhaust side to leave the exhaust valve open for a moment. So as it's pulling back down, it pulls back some exhaust gases into the chamber at the same time it's pulling in the fresh intake air and fuel. So it pulls back just a little bit and then the valve closes on the exhaust side. It's that backflow that's the peril, right? So imagine now we've got our catalyst is breaking up, we've got the ceramic pulverized material in here kind of fluttering around. We're on beginning our suck stroke, the exhaust valve is still open, and we draw back some of that ceramic material in the exhaust stroke. Then the valve closes, and now we have that ceramic material trapped inside the combustion chamber, where it can get on top of the cylinder, gets onto the walls, and ceramic is absolutely a hard material. It'll scratch up the walls of the cylinder. It won't purge out, it doesn't burn off. It just sits in there like sand and scrapes up the inside of the cylinder walls and essentially destroys your engine. So very bad condition. Most cars, this probably wouldn't be a big deal if the catalytic converter was a foot or two away from the intake valve and the exhaust valve. But on our cars, as you can see, the canister is literally 3 or 4 inches down for a couple of cylinders. So basically, it's like the exhaust port's here and the top of the catalyst is right there. So this suck back motion is very close and gives it an opportunity to draw back some of this pulverized ceramic material. So that's how the damage can occur. So now let's get on with showing you how to check to see if your catalysts are in perfect condition or if they've got some breakup going on. And I'm going to show you what tools we need to do that next. We need a few tools. Some of them are quite specialty, so let me cover them. First and foremost, we're going to need an O2 sensor offset socket. So this is a 7/8, which is equivalent to 22 millimeters Tecton O2 sensor socket. I'm going to have a link to this down below, but the magic of this is that it has this slot so we can get over top the wire and then onto the socket and remove it. Another tool that I had to add to my collection was a bendy head, long handle, bent handle, 3/8 inch ratchet. Now you might be able to do the steps with just the regular 3/8 ratchets that you have, but I found that if being able to offset the head and to get into some tight places was useful. You need a couple of fairly long 3/8 drive extensions. So this one's about 12 inches, this one's about 6. You could of course just put a few of them together to make the length, but we're going to need some longer extensions. Your trusty shop light, a rag, a Sharpie marker maybe to mark one of the sensors, and then optionally this is my bore scope. And you're thinking, oh my God, what's he talking about? I got to get a bore scope. We're going to want to look into the hole once we take out one of the sensors. And this basically is a camera on the end of a stick. Hey, there's the cameraman. This is going to be quite useful. I'm going to show you how I use it in the video. Basically, I can take pictures by clicking the button here. I can even switch and take video. So when we're doing the inspection, this is how I'm going to record the results. So let's go ahead and get over to the car and give it a try. All right, so on the left-hand side of the car, we're going to basically work obviously through the fender well. You can't get at it through the top because the cooling system reservoir blocks our hands. So I've got the car up off the ground, I've removed the wheel, and I've removed the inner fender liner. And I'll have links up here to the videos on how you can do that. On the right-hand side of the car, the good news is we can do it from above. So let's put our tools together. So you're definitely going to use a variety of extensions. So I know for the one we're doing here, which is actually the rearward O2 sensor for 10, 11, 12, I need about an 18-inch extension, works pretty well. And then I have my ratchet here. So we're going to take this assembly and essentially there's the slot in so I can slip over the wire and then over the sensor itself, and I can get the socket to engage. And my experience has been, so there's very limited amount of rotation that I can get, but I found that if it just breaks loose, it's been finger loose the rest of the way. So I'm going to just try and crack it loose here. There we go. And so I'm going to take the socket off, and now I'm going to do the rest by hand. So it's going to be hard to film, but basically now you're wondering, well, what about the wire? Well, this wire is pretty hardy, and it's going to take about 3 threads. So I'm going to just literally kind of twist the wire back up as I undo this. It's about half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. And there you have it. I've got the O2 sensor removed. And now, in the background, we can see the actual port that goes into the top of the catalytic converter chamber. So now that we have the O2 sensor out of the chamber, we want to get a look inside. And so that's going to be pretty challenging, right? So you could try to get a light and get your phone in there to, over the hole to take a picture. And even then, all you're going to get is a little region. So this is where the bore scope's going to come into play. And there are all sorts of bore scopes that you can get on Amazon and other places. And so I'm going to use this particular one. It's a pretty decent one, but this is the whole reason I bought this thing. The way it works is it's got its own self-contained light, and I'm basically just starting to aim it down into the chamber. I missed. And there you go. You can start to see our matrix that's in there. And what we're doing is we're trying to get in, and so this is what you just couldn't do with your phone, is you need to inspect the whole surface, and you're looking for broken materials, holes, and uneven surface. So notice in the lower right-hand corner right now, the matrix is a little, there's one cell that's got a little, it's not straight across the top, there's a little bit of nibble away, a little bit of erosion. And that's something, you know, to be concerned with, because where is that gone? But that's not the type of breakup that Mike's talking about in his videos. Hi, future me again. So if you don't need to learn how to inspect the other 3 cats right now, and you just want to see the discussion with Mike at Bamford Rose about the condition of my cats, now's a good time to jump forward in the video. Otherwise, let's get on with inspecting the other 3. All right, with the rear one removed, what I'm interested in doing now is taking a look at the front one. And here's a tip. I'm making a mark on the rear one because I want to leave this sensor out while I pull out the front one because it's easier. So I'm just going to put a little mark. And in my head, black is back. So that's the rear sensor. So for the front sensor, I can do that with just the 12-inch extension only. And I can slip that on. Again, I just need to crack it loose, hopefully. And that's all it took. Let's see if I can get it with my hands only now. I can. 2, 3. And again, it's just about 3 turns. And now you can see we have access to the front one. So same deal, we're going to get in there with the bore scope and check that one out as well. So to put it back in, you might want to apply a little bit of copper grease. So copper grease is super high heat conductive, so that will help out. Now here's the trick. Now I'm going to be tightening this 3 full turns, and I don't want to leave the wiring all bound up and twisted 3 full turns. So what I'm going to do is, sitting in this position, I'm going to wind it backwards like I'm loosening it 3 turns. So that's 1, 2, 3. So now it's wound up. All right, so then we just refit it into the hole. Carefully get the thread started. And that's a bit of a trick, but there we go. And now, since I had it wound backwards 3 turns, as I tighten it up, it basically goes back to leaving my wires straight and untensioned, which is good. And then I'm going to go back in with my socket. And now I'm going to snug it up. Now this is kind of like tightening a spark plug. There's a crush gasket in there, so I'm not going to go to a torque spec. I'm just going to go till I've got it good and snug. There we go. And one reinstalled. Now I'm going to put back the other one. So on the right-hand side with cylinders 1 through 6, we're going to do the same, but we're going to do it through the top. And I'll show you the close-ups in a second here. And you're going to be going, well, why aren't we doing it? Why are we going to go down through all these really tight spaces? And if you can follow me, Mr. Cameraman, down here, essentially where we need to get to is in here. And there's an air conditioner, dryer, some air conditioning piping, the subframe. All this stuff is in the way, so I can't get the wrenches in. But the good news is that we actually have a pretty good pocket of space to get our hands down and work through here. So we're going to head down to the sensors that are basically right down in there. We can see them. And I'm going to show you how to get each of those loosened off. To do the front one, I'm using a 12-inch extension, and we're probably going to rely on the bendy head of this ratchet a little bit. But I'm going to basically angle fit it in through here. There we go. So I'm attached onto the sensor, and if you come in and look through the top here, you can see where the end of my extension is right here. And now if I get down in here with my bendy head, connected, there you go. So this joint's kind of bent, and I'm using my hand here to brace the pivot point. And now, again, all we have to do is crack it loose. There we go. And with that cracked loose, I should be able to reach in here and unscrew this as needed to get it back out. So the other one we're going to go at, I'm just going to show you real quick now too. We're not going to use any extension. And I would suggest you probably take that front one out first just so it's out of the way. Basically, I hand installed that, and now I'm going to get my ratchet in. All right, so I've attached my ratchet head, and again, all I'm going to do is just try and crack it loose. There we go. And I'd be able to take that one out and inspect it as well. So go ahead and break yours out and get your cameras in and check out the footage, and put them back in and tighten them up. And let's take a look and see what the footage actually means next with Mike from Bamford Rose.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining me. I was just showing everybody how to get their primary catalyst inspection done. And, we pulled out the O2 sensor in the top of the primary cat chamber, and I got in with my bore scope and I took some footage. And what I was worried about on my car, which is a 2005 DB9 coupe, is that when I bought it, back in, I guess it was 2013, it was already 8 years old. I didn't know anything about misfires. I hadn't seen any of your videos. I wasn't sure about, any of that. And then about a year into my ownership, I started to learn that I had a lumpy idle, right? So sitting at the light, I could feel that little, boom going on in my car. And I've done a whole video series, on how to change my spark plugs and coil packs. So I fixed it about 9 years in. And then I discovered your videos, and I've watched about the catalyst breakup that could happen in the primary cat. So I was worried, has that happened? Had that already happened to my cats? So I've dug in and I've got some video footage, and I'm wondering if I could spend a minute having you look at them and give me your thoughts.
Yeah, hi there, Steve. Yeah, no problem. Let's see what you got.
All right, so let me pull up the first photo. All right, so this is bank 456 catalyst. This is when I had the misfire, it was on cylinder 5. So I figured this would be, if I was going to have some damage, it might be on this one. And what am I looking at here?
Yeah, well, obviously that's the top face of the catalyst from viewed from going in from the lambda sensor. You've got a little bit of erosion going on there. Around the outside, that surface face looks fairly fresh and undisturbed. That's largely to do with the gas flow across the face of the catalyst not being that even, and it gets super concentrated onto one specific area, which is sort of mostly where your patch of sort of erosion is. But saying that, looking at that patch of erosion, you can see the depth of it isn't that great. It's just like a surface layer that's been taken off. Certainly that appearance is certainly nothing to worry about. And probably it had an episode. Maybe it could have been when you noticed the lumpy idle. That means that there was unburnt fuel probably going onto the face of the cat. And the erosion is because the fuel was auto combusting on the face of the catalyst. I think you can see just that to your orange circle, just at about 3 o'clock position, there's an area that looks a little bit more, I wouldn't say damaged, but it looks a bit different than the main part. Yeah, that's it, just there. You can see a few bits of the matrix are starting to sort of roll over, and that will like block up gas flow in that part. Just then, if that happened across the whole face of the catalyst where the gas was distributed on, then obviously that would lead to overheating of that particular part and the problem worsening. But again, that just looks like it had a little bit of an episode at one point in time and hasn't got any worse. So fundamentally, what you're looking at there, I don't think is anything to worry about. And if anyone put a camera down there, lambda sensor hole, and had a look at the face of the catalyst, it's going to be a very similar picture to that. So, good news for your car is that there certainly isn't a problem there.
Well, that's good to hear. Now I've similarly, I've pulled out the lambda sensors on my other 3 banks, and this was the most sort of minor erosion that I saw, and which is good news, I guess. So, I guess in my cars, for anyone watching, my car's got about 50,000 miles on it now. So I don't know if this kind of builds up over time, but yeah, it's good to hear that this is kind of regular. Let me show you another picture real quick here, Mike, if you got the time. So while I had the camera in the chamber above the catalyst, I turned on the side view of the camera and I looked essentially straight up. And this is what I saw. And I think what I'm seeing here might be a really clear sort of confirmation of what you've been warning us about. So if that catalyst material is breaking up on the surface, I'm looking up just a matter of a couple of inches. This is probably looking up straight at cylinder number 4's exhaust ports. And if I'm oriented properly, is this am I looking right up and I'm seeing sort of the exhaust valves aren't too far beyond this hole that I'm seeing right here?
Yeah, correct. That's the bridge in the center between the exhaust ports. And just a little bit closer there would be the head gas, the exhaust manifold gasket face from to head. And then where your orange arrow heads sort of terminate there, that's the start of the primary pipe, the header pipe. And that little bit of carbon buildup is where that primary pipe meets the collector. So
it's so close. I was just like, oh my God, am I looking up and seeing already into the chamber, basically exhaust valve chamber or exhaust port. And I can completely see how if there was ceramic dust or particles banging around down here just where the camera head is, and if it sucks back at all during that suck, squeeze, bang, blow cycle, it's not very far to pull back those particles and get them into cylinders 4, or 3, I bet.
Yeah, that V12 engine has got a huge valve overlap, which isn't really a normal sort of setting on road car engines. We all know the reason why that was done. They wanted to achieve a certain amount of exhaust gas recirculation to combat NOx emissions, but they didn't want the extra pipe work valve and the software in the engine management system to control it. So a certain set valve overlap was designed to give a certain amount of suck back of gas, which equals a certain amount of gas dilution, probably no more than 3 to 5%, something like that. And that gets the amount of EGR that they want.
Let me show you one last photo. So this was my bank 789. I took a more, this is what, if you didn't have a bore scope, this would be like if you were slipping your smartphone down and somehow got some lighting in the hole. Does this look pretty normal? Also, to me, it looked pretty consistent. And like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's a total normal appearance of a catalyst. And just recently, we've had a couple of customers in with their real high mileage early DB9, and they've got 125,000 mile on their car, and their cats look exactly like that.
So if you're at home and you're checking your cats out, this is what it looks like, happy days. So Mike, I was going to ask, what would it look like if somebody wasn't in good condition? Like, what would the surface of this look like when you inspected it, if they were having a real considerably serious cat problem?
Well, if you remember your first picture where only a few of the matrix just had a rolled over edge to them, and it's got super hot and sort of folded in on itself with gas flow, then a significant number would look like that. And also on your picture, it was clear that not too much height had been eroded away. If you look at a picture that's got undulations, portions of erosion to it, and you can see that it's lost a significant amount of height of the matrix, and maybe there's a jagged edge to them as misfire has sort of exploded and caused a little bit of the portion to break away, then you just be looking at a more attacked sort of matrix. That's probably the easiest way to define it. But gentle undulations without the edges rolled over is normal. It's just if you can see a significant depth eroded away, and as that goes out to the edges, if that were to happen, then that's going to put at risk the sort of structural integrity of that whole catalyst as it's mounted in the outer can. Okay.
Well, let's say you had considerable cat failure. You get in and you see that you've got sort of that excessive wear. Should they keep driving the car and monitor it, or what should their next course of action be?
Well, still to this day, I've never had one of my own customers suffer cat failure. It's always a car that we see for the first time to repair. So I think there's several things you could do. If you were at home doing a lot of your own maintenance, then you could take out the 4 lambda sensors and, as in your picture there, have a look down and see what your catalyst condition is in, and do that periodically. That's one good thing. So you'll catch early anything that was to happen. If you've got access to the diagnostic tool or a good intelligent fault code checker, you could have a look at your count up of type A, type B misfire and come to a conclusion on that data if something is wrong. But the absolute best thing to do is, with the official AMDS laptop, look at real-time misfire through the diagnostic tool, and that gives you the ability to have all 12 cylinders on a bar graph, and on the x-axis you've got cylinder number, on the y-axis you've got misfire counts, and you can just see it real-time counting up misfire. So what I do with cars in the shop, I get them warm, get them idle, and just look at the trend of misfire idle, and then take it through the rev range on the accelerator pedal. Look at it at, say, 1500 RPM, 2000, 2.5, 3. There's probably not much point looking at anything above that, because if it's going to misfire, you're going to notice it in the low speeds when the engine has got a little bit of load on it. And at the same time that you've maybe, I put the laptop on the roof, and I've got my forearms on the sort of A to B pillar sort of rail. You can get a feel for how that engine is running by feeling through your arms the sort of vibes that are going on in the chassis. And if a misfire was to occur, you could sort of feel it at the same time. You'd just be hearing the exhaust have a slight, I was sort of characteristic. And then because the system is reactionary, you'd then see a misfire count up on the particular cylinder that you could feel and hear it from. And when you put that diagnostic tool on, there will be a small number of misfires that accrue that doesn't really represent a problem. You maybe couldn't feel it through the chassis and you couldn't hear it. I'm not sure the calibration of that system exactly, but it will count up a misfire event, which is basically inconsequential. but there's certainly a threshold where you can see a number of counts occur. You can hear them, you can feel them, and you know that that's something that you need to do something about, normally plugs and coils. And this is building up to the problem that the car would tell you about it had if you had misfire, because it would put the light on the dashboard. But that is governed by legislation. Legislation dictates the number of cycles that the manufacturer must put the light on for. And what we've got to remember is that that light, that diagnostic aid on the dashboard, isn't our helpful friend telling us of faults the car has got. That is a light to say that the car is behaving in a way which puts it outside of emissions compliance. And, you know, take a car to the garage because you're polluting the atmosphere quite badly and it needs fixing. So there's sort of area that is above inconsequential misfire, which is below that level in which the light comes on. And that middle ground does cause the V12 engine a problem, because if you were to drive down the freeway on cruise control at, say, 2000 RPM, and it's having that low amount of misfire, which wasn't detected by the system and put the light on because it was below that threshold, then you could spend a tank full of fuel just misfiring unburnt fuel on the face of the catalyst, auto combusting. And I've seen that time and time again cause someone a problem where that has broke the catalyst up and it's been ingested. So the key is, you know, each annual service to really have a close look with the factory laptop tool to understand if you have a level of misfire which is in that gray area.
You've said many times in many of your videos that if you had an Aston Martin, the very first thing you do is get rid of the primary cats.
Yeah, day one. They just serve me no purpose whatsoever. I'd pass the annual conformity check on the secondary cat. As a driver, that catalyst is just causing me a liability and offering me, you know, no real benefit. So, you know, you can take it out, and you know, the process of taking it out is just mechanics, nuts and bolts. You know, you can remove the header. We cut it, so we take it out in 3 pieces, because then you don't have to drop the lower subframe to get the exhaust header out. So if you have one cut and you can take one secondary pipe away, that leaves you the 2 primary cats and 1 secondary pipe, and you can get that out in one assembly. So then putting it back together, we weld a flange where we cut it, and obviously in the meantime we've taken out that primary cat. So it is quite easy to remove the header, remove the catalyst, put it back on the car. The only problem you've got then is the engine management system will detect that there's no gas conversion going on between the upstream sensor and the downstream sensor, and you'll put P420, P430 fault code on the dashboard. So the way to fix that would be ECU remap with that fault code turned off. If I didn't have access anyone to do that, I've not done this myself because I've not needed to, but there's no reason to suggest it wouldn't work. You can leave the upstream sensors where they are, and just lengthen the harness to your downstream sensor put it
behind the secondary. Yeah. Well, you might see me trying to undertake getting rid of my primary cats in a video sometime in the years ahead. So awesome, Mike. Thank you very much for sharing your time with me, and look forward to seeing you on the next video.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, we'll see you then.
Well, that was terrific for Mike to join us for that. As always, I'm eager to have knowledge sponsors come in and contribute, because I'm just like you. I don't know everything, that's for sure. So it's nice to hear from Mike, you know, what his thoughts were. So the upshot was that the wear and tear, the slight bits of erosion on my catalyst surfaces is normal for a 50,000 mile car. And I think the caution then continues to be to at least at every annual service to make sure I monitor for misfires. hooking up an AMDS, or you could probably do that with a Thinkware or a Foxwell, and make sure you have no misfires going on in your engine. This first sign of misfires, you should address it so that way you won't break up your catalyst. Now, I wouldn't go ahead and go to all the trouble to do this any other time than maybe during an annual service. So during the 2-year annual service, when you got the wheel arch liners out to check the air filters, it only takes about 5 minutes if you have the right tool to go ahead and pop the sensors out and have a look. And it is a really good reason to go out and buy a really nice tool. So I think it was a worthwhile effort. So I'm satisfied mine are okay and good for another couple of years, and I'll keep watching for misfires. So down here you'll find a link to my companion blog article that'll probably have links to the tools. It'll have some better still photos of the videos. Maybe I'll have the video files linked up there so you could look at them in detail if you were interested yourself. Up here you'll probably find a link to one of my more recent videos. If you like videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe, and you'll get notified automatically when a new video comes out. And as always, I love to hear your comments. Please leave those down below. Thanks for watching.